Welcome to HP Fanfiction. Support me by subscribing the channel. Also, like and share the video to keep me motivated to make more videos like these. Jenny Abercrombie was always being chatted up in the local supermarket where she worked. Those who knew her, though, just smiled. Those men chatting up the pretty girl who'd yet to see her 30th birthday were wasting their time. Jenny already had a young man in her life. Ewan was now 11. And the center of her universe. As a younger woman, Jenny had dreams of her own. She was 17, hoping to go to university the following year, but one night at a party put paid to all that. No matter how hard she tried, Jenny couldn't remember anything about that night. Her parents' reactions, though, were forever etched in her brain. Their entire focus was on the fact Jenny couldn't tell them who the father was, rather than the fact their daughter was pregnant and needed their help and support. Jenny'd only ever had one serious boyfriend and certainly never slept around. Her parents, though, had said things that there was just no recovering from. Her local council had really come through for Jenny with a little flat. There was also money from the state to get her going. Her social worker had recognized a drive in Jenny to be independent, doing everything she could to help the young family along. Getting Ewan into a daycare center allowed Jenny to work, her hours working increasing as Ewan got older. This branch of the Abercrombie family were proud they stood on their own 2 feet. Then someone called McGonagall turned up out of thin air and took their legs out from under them. That a blonde, blue-eyed boy was magical, and technically a wizard, was definitely enough to sweep Jenny off her feet. That he would have to go away to some special boarding school for over 9 months every year was certainly a blow. Discovering there was someone they'd never met willing to pay for everything was almost a step too far for Jenny. That was until she'd seen the list of books and equipment Ewan would need for attending this school, and a special uniform too. The McGonagall witch had convinced them to at least meet the people involved, so here they stood. An excited Ewan had his bag on his back while he clutched onto the invitation that supposedly would magically take them where they needed to go. Jenny too was wearing a backpack and holding onto the invitation just as she'd been instructed, but Jenny was a lot more skeptical than her son. She was beginning to think this was all some elaborate hoax when their portkey activated. Harry stepped forward to greet the surprised arrivals. "You must be Ewan and his mum. Welcome to Kinkussy. I'm Harry, and I'm really pleased to meet you. Would you mind standing over here for a minute? We're really busy today, and the next portkey is expected shortly." The young man was taking Jenny by the arm, before her brain kicked into gear again. "You're the Baron and we're really in Kinkussy." This had Harry laughing. Yes to both those questions. Now, as I said, we're really busy this weekend, so we might not get time to sit down and answer all the questions. I'm sure you have. Don't worry though, I promise to meet again well before Ewan here is due to leave for Hogwarts. This is my mate Hermione, and Luna here was one of the first recipients of a Potter scholarship. The introductions were interrupted by a portkey delivering the McDonald's to Kinkussy. All traces of Natalie's shyness were long since banished, as she sprang at them the instant her feet touched the ground. Roy was chuckling as their daughter hugged her friends. "Good to see you all again. As you can probably tell, Natalie is rather excited by this weekend. We're really looking forward to seeing her perform magic too. Your fair is a pretty exciting event all round, Harry. Anything we can help you with?" "Actually, there is, Roy. Ewan has been offered a Potter scholarship. Both he and his mother, though, probably feel as if they've just landed on Mars." This set Roy off laughing while his wife was already heading to offer Jenny her support. Landing on a different planet was a good analogy of how they had felt this time last year. Natalie, though, headed straight for Ewan. "Oh, you'll absolutely love Hogwarts. I was one of the 2 Potter scholarships last year. Luna and Colin were brilliant in making sure I knew what was happening and always being there if I needed someone. This year it's Pauline and my turn to look after you. The Potter scholarships are like a family that just keeps getting bigger and bigger." Mary was alongside Jenny, her smile beaming with pride at her daughter. She spoke quietly to the young mother. "You might find this hard to believe, but our Natalie was really shy. So shy she had a lot of trouble making friends. Letting her attend Hogwarts was easily the hardest decision we ever had to make. Seeing how happy that's made Natalie means it was also one of the best decisions we made too. Are you know, magical? No, Roy and I are just like you. It surprised the hell out of us to discover there was a witch in the family. Harry's mother was the same, born to non-magical parents. It's why Harry wanted at least one of the scholarships to go to a witch or wizard like that every year. Jenny was watching her son chatting away to Natalie and the blonde girl Luna, while still trying to trot her head around that this was all real. I'm at a total loss here. This Baron turns out to be 17-18 and is walking about with a sword at his hip and epaulets on his shoulders. This is the person who I'm supposed to trust my son to. The older woman tried to help, understanding how difficult this was. Harry isn't actually 14 until the end of the month. He's also an officer in the Goblin Army. That's why he's dressed like that. Harry is one of the kindest, polite and considerate young men I have ever met. I know nothing will happen to my Natalie while he's there beside her. The Creevies should be arriving soon. Their eldest son, Colin, is in the same year as Luna, while Dennis will be starting with Ewan. They answered literally hundreds of questions for Roy and I last year as we battled with the same decision you face. We're all here to do the same for you. At that, the Creevy family arrived, and warm greetings were exchanged before Harry once more took command. We need to head over to the stadium. Everyone is gathering there. Just leave your bags here and the elves will take care of everything. Dennis and Ewan, do you want to sit beside the other students, or can I sit with Colin, please? Colin had a hand on his younger brother's shoulder, knowing Dennis was desperate to get to Hogwarts. Harry, we can keep an eye on both of them. They're going to be in the same year group, so might as well start getting to know one another now. Ewan looked pleadingly to his mum. Starting a new school was a daunting prospect. Already having friends at that school could make a world of difference. Her nod meant Ewan's day was just getting better and better. The only person unhappy about this was the smallest Creevy. Little Maggie was 8 and really feeling left out. That was until Luna came forward and offered her hand. Would you like to come and sit with me? That got an immediate yes before Luna led them out of the house. She knew where they were headed. This gave Harry and Hermione a moment to talk with the 5 parents. Miss Abercrombie, Hermione's parents are both dentists. While my adoptive father is a goblin, we have some idea of what you're going through at the moment. The Creevies and the McDonalds. I'll answer any questions that you have, and I promise to sit and go over anything you're still not sure of. I feel a bit like I've invited you here and am now passing the buck, but we literally have the whole of Hogwarts waiting for us down at the stadium. Hermione was handing them leaflets that contained a map of the attractions in the Glen, along with a schedule of what was on when in the stadium. The elves will bring you any refreshments you want. That will give Miss Abercrombie a chance to ask some questions before you take a stroll through the Glen. We should have everything running by this afternoon. Feel free to try anything you want before all the people arrive tomorrow and Sunday. As Harry and Hermione hurried away, Jenny sat at a table with these 2 couples and found another question added to her list as tea, cakes and scones just appeared on the table. Hermione just loved watching Harry take command. It did something fluttery to her insides. Unfortunately, Crow's Nest was bursting at the seams, and the chance of them getting some alone time this weekend was nil. She would just have to save those feelings until Hermione could get him alone on the island. It was getting very close to his birthday, which was scheduled for the next upgrade in their relationship. She could hardly wait. Harry stood beside his girl, with no clue of the thoughts currently rushing through Hermione's head. If he had, there would have been no chance of him getting through what he had to do now. Okay, everyone here has volunteered to help at the fair this weekend. The invitations you took home to your family already indicated what day you would be working. Today you'll be finding out just what you'll be doing and where. Harry was using the microphone to talk to everyone in the stands. It was tied to the public address system that was built into the stadium. He was facing almost all of Hogwarts, rather a daunting task, but one he couldn't pass to anyone else. This was his home and he was the one who had invited these people. That put certain responsibilities onto him. Now, does everyone have a leaflet? Cries of yes. Saw Harry continuing. Well, first off, I want to make something clear here. Our jobs are crowd control, directing visitors to the proper queue and answering their questions. Apart from this stadium, All the attractions have been built and will be operated by goblins. They have spent months designing, building and putting their operating procedures in place. The people in charge of your group will have studied a copy of those procedures and worked out the best way for us to work within those limits. Seeing nothing but nodding and smiles being directed back at him gave Harry a measure of how far they'd come as a society when they could accept that fact. The next 2 days would tell if they had come far enough. Now, for your assignments, I'll be introducing the people in charge of your group, and they will read out a list of names. The exceptions to that will be the first and second years. All will start one of the days off in the stadium, before spending the rest of that day with their family. Their volunteer day will be spent working with the young children in the green zone. If all first years would like to come forward, you can get your hats now. Emma, Moa, Henrika, and Sapphire all put on green caps that had a golden crow clutching a sword on it. The first years were soon queuing to collect their identical badges of office. The second years eagerly made their way down as soon as Harry called for them. Hermione had a quick word with her mum, and Ewan, Dennis and a delighted Maggie soon had hats too. They had split the Glen into colored sections, with members of the public being able to ask anyone wearing the proper hat for assistance. As Harry introduced the people in charge of each section, they called students' names, and they came forward to get their appropriate hats. Once the process was complete, Harry handed the microphone over to Tonks, who wanted to say something. I am in charge of security for this weekend, and we all know this would be a juicy target for a certain group of criminals. We are behind wards here that are every bit as strong as those protecting Hogwarts. There will also be patrols of Urus and warriors to ensure we can deal with any situation. These Urus and warriors will be even more motivated since all of their families will be attending Kinkisi this weekend. So please don't let worrying about these criminals affect your fun. Tonks was known and trusted by everyone in Hogwarts. If she said Kinkisi was safe, then that was good enough for them. What I need from you lot is your assistance. You can give this by not pulling any pranks, no midnight wandering from your tents, and basically being on your best behavior. The entire point of this weekend is for everyone attending to have fun. If we all work together, then we should be able to achieve that. Tonks was pleasantly surprised when she received applause after her little speech. Taking the microphone back, Harry laid out the plans for today. Crow's Marauders, please stay here as we plan on having a quick rehearsal of what we plan to do tomorrow. First years, please head off to the green zone. You will get a run-through after us, and then the Quidditch players can have some practice time. The rides will officially open at 3 and close again at 8. With a special performance of the circus taking place here at 5. After 8, a supper for everyone will take place at the eating area, before we call it a night. I would like to thank everyone for volunteering for this weekend. We really couldn't pull it off without your help. This received applause and some cheering before people started heading off to their assignments. Padma, Neville, Daphne, Blaze, Susan and Terry joined Harry and Hermione in the center of the stadium to quickly go over the plans for tomorrow's display. Harry smiled when he noticed Denny, Ewan and Maggie were still sitting in the audience, wearing their hats and clapping like mad as he called Crow's Marauders down. Lee Jordan had practically begged Harry for the chance to be the commentator in the stadium. Harry had gratefully fallen on his offer, and Lee would cover everything but the circus over the weekend. Both thought they got the best of the deal, with Lee now overjoyed he was commentating on 2 pro teams, as well as getting to introduce the Weird Sisters. Lee was sitting taking notes on what Crow's Marauders would be doing tomorrow, since that would be his opening event as the stadium commentator too. The 5 parents only realized they'd been talking for hours when the house began to fill up again. The Creevies and the McDonalds introduced Jenny to the extended family as they began appearing for lunch. Harry and Hermione turned up with a few stowaways. Both had young goblins by the hand who had been invited to have lunch with them. The grandfather clock chiming 2 saw Harry sprint away, returning a few moments later with a young family he introduced as the Duggans. Little Danielle headed straight for Barchoke and hugged him before saying hello to the goblin children who were already there. When Henrika entered with Astrid in her arms, all the children gravitated over to see the baby. Jenny Abercrombie felt as if she'd spent all morning taking 1 step forward and 2 back. The history of this young man was simply unbelievable. She had of course heard of the Potter killers. Discovering Harry was their main target almost had her leaving Kinkisi there. And then, Hearing that Harry had placed shields around both the McDonald and Creevy homes to stop these criminals getting anywhere near them halted those thoughts in their tracks. Discovering that Harry had spent millions ensuring everyone named Potter was safe simply blew her mind. Seeing him with the various children reinforced that he was a good person. Watching Harry dote on the baby he was godfather to had Jenny wanting to trust him. When she spotted the expression of sheer joy on Ewan's face as he entered with Luna, the Creevies and Natalie, that pushed the scales even further in that direction for Jenny. There was now a fair chance Ewan would be going to Hogwarts come September, on a Potter scholarship too. The glen had reverberated with shrieks of laughter all afternoon. The large gong signaling it was 8 o'clock was greeted by good-natured groans and moans as everyone began heading to the food area. There wasn't enough seating for everyone, but it was a lovely summer's evening, so groups of friends were perfectly happy to sit on the grass and eat their food out of these strange containers. One thing not being feasted upon was the people themselves. The wards around the glen also blocked the scourge of the Scottish Highlands, no midges. The Highland midge is a curse Scots have to endure for living in such a beautiful country. Those pests have descended in clouds to ruin many an outdoor occasion. It's hard to enjoy yourself with those little buggers feasting on your blood. There was no sitting on the grass for Emma. Dobby had appeared with her favorite chair and also placed a small table at the side of it. This raised an amused chuckle from her husband. If Dan had hovered even half as much as Dobby did, his wife would soon be telling him she was pregnant, not ill. Emma would never dream of saying anything like that to the devoted little elf. She knew it would break Dobby's heart. Dan returned with cartons of food and placed them on the table. Noticing Dobby had already provided Emma with a cup of her favorite tea, Dobby would make sure his mistress didn't overdo things. That was just another reason for Dan to love the little guy. Harry and Hermione were sitting on the grass, surrounded by a large group of friends, when their father joined them. "Well, are we ready?" Harry looked around, seeing goblin children and a few of their parents mixed in with his group. Little Danielle Dugan was chatting away to a couple of goblin children and Maggie Creevy was doing the same. "Father, even if we stopped now, I would count this whole idea as a success. We have all three cultures mixing happily right here. That's exactly what we wanted from this weekend." Hermione slipped her hand into Harry's before answering. "I think we're about as ready as we'll ever be. Just one thing though. I don't want to hear any announcements from either of you two about making this an annual event. While I think we could certainly do this again, this is our home and I miss the peace and quiet." She misses her alone time with Harry. Padma's comment caused some laughter, probably because of the truth behind it. "Seriously though, I don't think you will have anything to worry about. Everyone had a great time today, and I'm sure it will be the same over the weekend. Even Ronald Weasley is getting right into the spirit of things. I'm certain he's tried food from every outlet. What that mixture will do to him I really don't want to know." This got a shudder from Neville. "I'm just glad I'm staying in Crow's Nest tonight. He's eaten chili beef, a couple of curries and oodles of noodles. I just hope there are air freshening charms in their dorm tent." Seeing the children laughing and joking like this was exactly what Barchoke needed. He knew how much the Mason had riding on this, but today really couldn't have gone much better. There were a few hundred goblins in the glen today, mixing with the population of Hogwarts. There hadn't been one single incident to report. That Harry and or Hermione seemed to have a goblin child with them wherever they went today certainly wasn't in any way planned. There was no denying the effect this had on everyone else though. To his children, this was becoming their normal when they were in Kingussie. It was everyone else accepts this as normal that was the real prize at stake this weekend. They had done everything they possibly could to make this weekend a success. They would just have to wait and see what happened when they opened tomorrow. Barchoke wholeheartedly agreed with his daughter though. There was no way he could take the pressure of organizing a fair on an annual basis. Jenny was trying to get Ewan to go to bed, but she'd never seen her son this excited. Not even on Christmas Eve. Then we got to see them use magic for defense. It was awesome, Mum. Demas says Colin thinks Harry and Hermione are simply the greatest. Neville is in the same house as Colin and really looked after him, even though Colin really fancied his girlfriend Padma. Demas said I wasn't supposed to tell anyone that. You won't tell, Mum. She couldn't help but smile as she ruffled his blonde wavy hair. My lips are sealed. What else did Dinny say? Jenny was worried for a moment as her son's head lowered at that. Her worry, though, changed to heartache as she listened to her son's answer. Colin also said there was no way his family could afford to send all three of them to Hogwarts. Maggie's magical too. Mum, I know we can't afford it either, and you know I would never ask for something we can't afford. But Harry's offering to pay for everything. Please, Mum, I really want to go. Colin, Natalie and Pauline all said it was like a family. Luna even said Harry and Hermione were her family. Please, Mum. She now had her son wrapped in her arms, hoping he wouldn't see the tears running down her cheeks. Will you be all right, leaving me for months at a time? There was silence for a moment before Ewan answered. Natalie said that was the hardest part, and she really missed her mum and dad. She wrote to them every week, though, and made tons of friends. I would be home for the Christmas holidays. She kissed her son on the forehead. Let's wait and see what the rest of the weekend brings before we make up our minds. I promise to answer you before we leave. Now off to bed, or you'll be too tired to enjoy tomorrow. Ewan gave his mum an extra tight hug. When she said wait and see, that nearly only led to a yes. He hurried off to bed, determined to be as well behaved as possible to get that yes out of his mum. Jenny was left sitting there on her comfortable armchair, staring at her surroundings. They were staying in a tent that was pitched inside a house that had a training room. This was no ordinary tent, though. The inside was at least twice the size of their flat and contained 3 bedrooms. She was now convinced that it would take something disastrous happening to stop Ewan heading off to Hogwarts. Jenny didn't know there were conversations taking place that would help her with that decision. Molly arrived with Arthur in Kingassy. They were met by a clearly excited Ginny. Mum, Dad, isn't this place just brilliant? Ron's working at the stadium while the twins are between the go-karts and the cinema. You've got to see that, Dad. Percy and Penny are both working with Bill in the Gringotts Zone. That they can already speak Goblin certainly helps. Molly was listening to her daughter, but her eyes were taking in her surroundings. Their portkey had dropped him in an area that appeared like a very well-kept garden. She soon noticed that the entire area had been manicured to a beautiful level. All the flowers and shrubs were in bloom, and the entire glen appeared to be festooned in brightly colored bunting and flags. She wasn't sure if it was Arthur's job or the fact they had 5 children volunteering at the fair, but they had invitations for both days. Her initial glance was telling her it might take both days to see everything there was to see here, and that was before a flying carpet passed overhead with the people on it waving to everyone. Aren't those illegal? Arthur quickly answered his wife, not wanting anything to spoil this day. To buy or sell? Yes. Not if you already owned one, and only use it on your own land. But this land is privately owned. We are here by invitation as the Baron of Kings's guests. In these circumstances, it's perfectly acceptable to use a flying carpet to entertain your guests. Ginny butted in before her mother could even think of starting on one of her rants. It's also one of the best ways to see everything in the glen. I tried it yesterday and it was great. The roller coaster goes too fast to really see anything, but Sapphire said that's the point, it's a thrill ride. I haven't heard you mention Sapphire before. Oh, she's Harry's goblin friend. Dead nice too. We all got to try the rides yesterday afternoon. We had a great time. We need to head for the stadium. Crave's Marauders are the first to put on a display. Sapphire said she was really looking forward to Harry fighting Master Shapshard. She says all the nation are. Can we go back and see that too? Tomorrow I'm helping in the zone for the smaller children. It's beautiful. They even have a Honeyduke's shop in there. Ginny was leading them along the tree-lined path as she spoke. Turning a corner had her mother suddenly letting out a shriek. Molly was reaching for her wand when Arthur and Ginny's loud laughter halted her actions. It's only a model, Mum. A very realistic one, though. You should see the basilisk in the Gringotts Zone. It's simply amazing. Arthur had his camera out to take the first picture of the day when Ginny stopped him. Hold on, Dad. The roller coaster runs every 90 seconds. You'll get a much better picture then. Sure enough, Arthur soon took the strangest picture of his life. A 30-foot dragon was holding onto the track in the air and getting ready to bite as carriages of people shot in between its open jaws. From the ground it was a spectacular sight. Arthur could only imagine what it looked like while sitting in those carriages. Ginny told him he didn't have to imagine, she'd already tried it, and intended to do so again today. Ginny had to leave them at the stadium, but they soon found Ron showing people to their seats, the black and white checked hat doing its job and making him stand out. It's great here, apart from the color of the hat. They didn't want to pick a color associated with a Quidditch team. It also makes us easy to see since this will be the busiest part of the Glen. I had a ride on the go-karts yesterday and they were just amazing. They're not as fast as brooms but seem faster because you're only about 6 inches off the ground. We were racing around the track and I thought I was going to win, up until Dean bumped me on the last corner. I'll certainly be going back there tomorrow. Aren't they dangerous? No, Mum. There are so many charms on them you probably couldn't hurt yourself if you tried. Need to go, we're really filling up here. Hearing that Ron was enjoying himself settled the last of Molly's doubts. The rest of her children had all holidayed with Harry and his family and she knew they would be fine. She once more concentrated on her surroundings. Arthur, why would the ministry build this here for Harry? We actually got a lot out of constructing this stadium. The ministry were always going to have to build some kind of mock-up rather than wait until just before the Quidditch World Cup final and discover any problems with their design. This gives us a chance to observe this copy working and see if there are any improvements to be made. I think Harry might have made a mistake in only having 5,000 seats. There are events today that I'm sure will be busier than that. Thankfully, any extra will be able to stand. The seating area curved around 2 sides of the arena pitch, leaving the other 2 open. A small retaining wall curved around the arena pitch, and the eating area was on a small hill overlooking. Anyone sitting there would have a great view of what was happening inside the stadium too. Molly hadn't bothered with her map before since Ginny led them straight here, but she was studying it now. From where they sat, they could see a lot of the attractions laid out before them. Their senses were being bombarded with unusual sights, sounds, and the smells coming from the eating section were heavenly. They settled down to have some fun watching their daughter perform, not bothering that there were goblins in the audience too. After all, the Minister of Magic was sitting next to a goblin. Harry stood with Hermione and their father waiting to greet the director on his arrival in Crow's Nest. Both males were soon on their knees with their head bowed, glad this gave them a moment to recover from the shock of Ragnarok being accompanied by his mate. That usually only happened on state occasions. The status of this fair just jumped another few notches. There was no procedure for dealing with this situation in Henrika's book on goblin customs, simply because it was such a rare occurrence. Hermione curtsied as if she was meeting the Queen, then kept her head bowed as Harry finally recovered the power of speech. Director, ma'am, you pay our humble house too much honor. Nonsense, Centurion. I have heard from my mate of the honor you continually bring to the nation and decided I must meet you for myself. I also couldn't resist witnessing your fight with Master Sharpshard. I'm really looking forward to that. Ma'am, at the moment my mentor could knock me over with a feather. Please don't place any gold on me. This was met with uproarious laughter from both the director and his mate. Barchoke even managed to raise a chuckle. You did well, Miss Granger. Capturing this silver-tongued rogue before his sweet line in words got him into trouble. Forgive me, Director, but my mate speaks the truth. Your presence here brings great honor to our home. This also drew a laugh from Ragnarok. What did I tell you, dear? She's not afraid to speak her mind or let her blade do the talking for her. These two are very well matched. I understand you're busy today, Centurion, but I hope we can meet at some point. Knowing this wasn't a request, Harry quickly agreed. After my match with Master Sharpshard, we're free for the rest of the day. I need to contact Emma Granger, though, to let her know I survived. Again this produced laughter as Barchoke rose to lead their very special guests away. Hermione had her arms around a still stunned Harry. Well, that was unexpected. Hermione, you certainly picked the time to develop a goblin sense of humor. He never got to say any more as Minister Fudge and his wife arrived by portkey. Minister, ma'am, welcome to our home. Thanks for inviting us, Baron. I expect half the ministry will be here at some point over the weekend, and all of the Wizengamot. That was a stroke of genius. Inviting them, Harry. It was simply meant as a gesture of thanks, Minister. Both Hermione and I were in the chamber that day when the Wizengamot awarded me a barony and this house. I just wanted them to see how much that meant to us. I may have houses scattered about the world, but Kingassy is the only one that feels like home for Hermione and I. Where else could you see magicals, muggles and goblins all mixing at the same event? All could see the sincerity shining out the young man. Harry's guard was down at the moment and he was speaking from the heart. A worthy goal, Harry, and one I'm more than happy to support. Lead on and let's see this fair of yours. There was a fair-sized audience sitting in the stadium to watch Crow's Marauders display. They certainly put on a show for them. They didn't have the Hogwarts room of requirements to help, so the tutors were kept busy setting up for the next part of the display, while some of the club were running shield drills to the astonishment of those in the crowd who didn't think second years capable of that feat. Shooting booths were being set up to demonstrate spell accuracy. The club's tutors had debated long and hard, finally reaching the decision that having their children firing curses at each other might not be the best thing to show the watching parents. They still had them working in teams of 4 but against pairs of dueling dummies. These dummies were also firing back, though their tutors were transfiguring different terrains after every match, giving them some cover to use. 2 teams of 4 would go head-to-head against each other to see which team could bring their dummies down the quickest. As there were time penalties for a team member getting hit by a dummy's spell, the competition was exciting and Lee's commentary soon had everyone involved in the drama unfolding before them. Molly was almost hoarse from cheering Ginny's team, who unfortunately lost out in the semi-final. She still roared her approval, though, when the team Luna was a member of won the competition. Crow's Marauders received a standing ovation at the end of their display, and the weekend was off to a flying start. In the box reserved for special guests, Amelia Bones was applauding as loud as anyone in the rest of the stadium, and not just because her Susan was one of the tutors out in the arena. The box held the heads of government of both the nation and the ministry. Barchoke couldn't resist teasing the woman he certainly considered a good friend. You seem very pleased at that, Amelia. Did you have gold on the outcome? I got something better than gold from that display, Barchoke. I got a glimpse of the future. Your son initiated a program where he's teaching Hogwarts students accuracy, shields, teamwork and tactical awareness. We're more used to receiving aura recruits who barely know one end of their wand from the other. Watching that today was pure gold for me. Amos and Tabitha Diggory were also present, and Amos couldn't resist an opportunity to boast about his boy. Cedric worked with Harry last year and those boys now run their own club. They'll be performing tomorrow. Amelia was well acquainted with Amos's penchant to promote his son at every opportunity. She couldn't resist teasing back. Susan will be one of the tutors for the new Hogwarts intake. The intention is to make the club self-sustaining. She says Harry hopes to have Marauders clubs running Monday to Friday. Minerva is even prepared to adjust the timetable if necessary to accommodate this. We all think this is something worth supporting. Ragnar and his mate were also pulled into the conversation as refreshments were being served. Since the next item scheduled to appear in the stadium was the goblin fighting display, diplomacy dictated that none of them could really leave until after that was over. The goblin warriors displayed their skill and prowess with blade and axe to a full stadium. No wizard had seen so many goblins before. A smirking Ragnar remarked to a slightly nervous minister that he could relax. Some of my people have traveled across continents to witness the match between Master Sharpshard and Centurion Crow. He's become as revered in our society as he is in yours. That to me is why this fair is such an important event. We both need to forge a way where Harry and his mate can feel at home in either of our societies. I have already given Harry my assurance that is something my ministry supports. Only by working together can we achieve this. Is that the long-bottom boy? All eyes were now on Neville as he walked into the arena. The announcer explained the next competition would be amongst youths under the age of 14. All looked to Barchoke for an explanation. He didn't have much to give them. As a friend of the nation, Neville Longbottom is of course entitled to enter the competition. Watching him walk out there, though, is the first I knew about this. The matches were soon underway and a very excited crowd watched Neville win his first match. He also won a second before a better opponent was able to combat his height and reach advantage. The healer quickly treated the nick Neville received on his arm before he bowed and then shook his opponent's hand. To much applause, the wizard had a wide smile on his face as he returned to his friends. Barchoke thought he understood what had just happened, and offered an explanation. I believe young Neville simply wanted to ascertain what level he was at amongst his peers. In reality, the only way to do that is cross blades with them. I think he did remarkably well considering the short time he's taken up the blade. I don't want to be the one to tell Augusta or Alice about what just happened here though. That had everyone in the box laughing, and Neville's showing was further enhanced by the goblin who beat him, eventually winning the competition. It was now time for the main event though, and you could sense the expectation all around the stadium. Centurion Crow and Master Sharpshard walked to the center of the arena with tremendous applause ringing in their ears. That ended abruptly as they bowed to one another. The fight the now mainly goblin crowd had come to see was about to get underway. Harry had activated his armor before the fight began. It was only that advanced speed and agility that saw him survive the initial onslaught from his mentor. It was frantic. It was furious as these two masters of their art performed the dance of death in front of an enraptured audience. Each were giving their all, trusting the other to block. This was such a rare occasion for both, where they could fight flat out, that they were actually enjoying the fight immensely. The fight was very evenly matched, with both having spells in the ascendancy and all then needing to defend for dear life. No one else could hear what was said over the relentless clash of steel upon steel. "Crow, I taught you that move. How did you think you were going to get past me with that?" "Oh, I thought old age would have slowed you down enough to let me sneak through." Harry had already decided not to use his magic. This was a demonstration of goblin fighting skills. Now all he had to do was convince himself he could win against the unbeatable Sharpshard without it. Harry was fighting with his knife and sword, forgoing a shield as his mentor was using the blade they'd bought him in Japan. Both were now sweating profusely, and Sharpshard sensed an opening when his opponent appeared to stumble. He pressed home his attack, and Harry's knife wasn't enough to halt Sharpshard's blade, grazing his cheek and drawing blood. The large goblin was about to bellow out his victory when he felt the blood running down his leg. His pupil had nicked him with his sword. "You sneaky bastard." "Not sneaky enough. I took the risk, but couldn't fully divert your blade with my knife." Both looked toward the referee, who could only shrug his shoulders. Telling which blade drew blood first would be impossible. It was only then the two combatants realized the entire stadium was on their feet and making enough noise to blow the roof off. The master offered his hand, and the student gladly shook it. Both walked out of the arena with their heads held high, knowing they had to do it again tomorrow, and already looking forward to it. The director was on his feet, applauding both of them. He also signaled for them to come up to the box. Harry led the way. Amelia was first to grab Harry as he entered, all decorum forgotten. "Merlin, Harry, now I know why Emma was so worried. You just about gave me a heart attack." "I'm fine, Amelia, and Dan has already sent Dobby to Emma with that information." Harry was now free to kneel beside his mentor, in front of the director and his mate. Conscious of the mixed company, Ragnarok addressed them in English. "That was a fight worthy of being stored in the memory archive. My only concern is how you are going to top that tomorrow." The answering growl came from Master Sharpshard. "By beating the ungrateful pup." This had the goblin contingent in the box roaring with laughter. All knew Sharpshard was immensely proud of his student. Harry had to then offer an apology. "Director, ma'am, I'm sorry, but when we spoke this morning, I forgot I was shooting next. Since my father and mate are also in this competition, you can see that family honor is at stake here. Can we delay our tour of the fair until after that?" "Shooting? Is that what Miss Granger's father used on their attackers?" Although that story wasn't public knowledge, it was known to everyone in the box, so Ragnarok answered, his mate. "Yes, I've actually had a demonstration, and was most impressed. Is your mate's father shooting today?" "No, Director." He decided to give the rest of us a chance. Sapphire will also be representing the nation. It should be an interesting contest. It was Amos, who then cheekily asked a question that saw glares heading in his direction. "And who are you representing in the competition, Harry?" Harry then managed to display his developing diplomatic skills. "I'm just trying not to lose to my mate. Or father. I won't mind too much if Amelia beats me." This shifted the focus to Amelia, who quickly confirmed she was competing too, but that Susan was a better shot than she was. All three competitors left along with Sharpshard, while Tabitha appeared desperate to get her husband alone for a few harsh words. The idea behind the stadium's schedule was that visitors to the fair could plan their day around the events they really wanted to see, exploring the other attractions in between events, and just missing those they weren't interested in. They had thought that the shooting would be an event most would miss. It turned out they were wrong. There was a lot of curiosity about this event, especially from the goblins who understood what these weapons could do. This time the competitors went out individually and shot at a total of 10 clay pigeons, the highest scorers making it through to the next round. Lee was commentating on the event, reassuring people that the wards around the arena protected everyone from any stray shot. He had the crowd cheering every time a clay was hit, drawing the spectators into the spirit of the day. Again, the competition was exciting, with Susan and Barchoke making it to the final. The goblin winning due to holding his nerve better in front of the large vocal crowd. Amelia, though, still had Susan wrapped in her arms. She was immensely proud of her niece. This was the second time today Susan had been in the arena, and that in itself was an achievement to be proud of. Ragnarok didn't think he could be any more pleased with today. He'd just witnessed a competition that was run by a muggle, assisted by elves, and won by a goblin. That there were a few thousand in the stadium who not only accepted this, they applauded Barchoke's victory, was simply unbelievable. Harry and Hermione were now leading the entire party on a tour of the fair. Since Sapphire was with them, after competing in the shooting, they were using the excuse of accompanying her back to head for the zone the couple really wanted to see. Walking into the green zone was like entering a different world. The entire company could only stand and watch. It was like an explosion in a paint factory, with even the paths made from yellow brick. Everywhere you look, your eyes fed back information on bright primary colors. There were swings, slides, merry-go-rounds, puppet shows, and jugglers, all supported by what seemed like an army of green-hatted Hogwarts students. While the eyes feasted on this colorful scene, it was the ears that were the most pleasing sense. They were being assaulted by that high-pitched noise that can only be produced by a large group of children having fun, and they were clearly having fun. The merry-go-round was composed of magical creatures, all of them slightly animated and occupied. Children sat on unicorns, hippogriffs, and baby dragons as they went round and round. The puppet show too had drawn quite the audience, as the children sat and screamed appropriate responses at what was happening on the stage. Harry was standing trying to drink all this in when Emma came rushing over. She ignored his "I'm fine" to check for herself. Only when satisfied did she crush him in a hug. After assuring herself her son was indeed fine, Emma then indicated her domain and asked his opinion. "What do you think?" "Our numbers really dropped at the moment as a lot of them headed off to see the circus. Most will be back though. I think I'm dreaming. Either that or those dreams have come true." There were still well over 100 children in the green zone, and it was anyone's guess whether there were more goblins than humans in that mix. That's exactly what it was too, a mix, goblins and magicals sitting side by side and laughing at the puppet show, or standing in line to climb to the top of the slide and shoot down it. This was what Harry had hoped for, children just being children. It was Ragnarok who had heard Harry and just had to say something. The world needs dreamers, those who can imagine ways to make our world a better place. More than that though, we need people to take those ideas and dreams and make them happen. You, Centurion, are one of those people. What we see in front of us here is a future few believed possible. You not only believed it was possible, you've shown the rest of us that it can be achieved. For that you have not only my thanks but the gratitude of our nation. The group then split up, all wanting to spend some time with the children. None failed to notice that Harry and Hermione were like magnets, and soon had a couple of children each following them around. Amelia nudged Cornelius to draw his attention to Harry. He has a goblin child holding one hand, and an Aura's daughter holding the other. Yet Harry sees no difference. He only sees two children. Look at the Hogwarts students in the green hats following the example he sets. This is the future, Cornelius. And see how the parents are accepting it too. The minister watched as a few of the helpers went on the rides with the smaller children, not caring if that child was goblin or magical. The parents too sat at benches arranged around the zone, drinking refreshments and chatting to their fellow parents about their children. He found himself agreeing with Ragnarok. This here was an achievement that might one day eclipse Harry's ranks, titles, awards, and even the fame of the boy who lived. Cornelius felt as if he was watching history in the making, a history he would be proud to play a part in. Voldemort also had history on his mind as he moved his shock troops. He was thinking how history would enshrine his achievements. He certainly intended for there to be a good few more pages of that history yet to write. The Dark Lord was aware all eyes would be looking north to Kinkusi this weekend. The security for that event would involve all the manpower the ministry could muster and be ironclad. He planned to use this fortuitous window of opportunity to move his army of inferi across the country and closer to his intended target. He was well aware of the limitations of his dead warriors. They weren't feared for their speed and couldn't use magic. Inferi were never going to charge across a field and attack his enemies. That was why he had originally used them as guards. His plan of attack, though, played to their strengths. Facing an Inferius was utterly terrifying to the average witch or wizard, and for a very good reason. Most of the spells they would normally use to defend themselves were useless against an animated corpse. There was also the fact that, when an Inferius got its hands on a victim, it was a most horrible way to die. Voldemort would see what the ministry made of this attack. He intended a lot more people to die this time. He needed a large body count before the ministry would even consider his demands. His plans for the Inferi should easily see that task accomplished. The Dark Lord actually hoped their fair was a great success. They may as well enjoy themselves while they could. It would also make his attack all the more horrific by comparison. He was, after all, a Dark Lord. Harry was utterly exhausted. The strain and effort of just getting through the day had left him with barely enough energy to make it to his bed, after kissing Hermione goodnight, of course. But what a day! Touring the fair with their special guests had been one of those experiences that would be etched on his brain forever. After witnessing the success of the children all playing together, his sense of invincibility wasn't helped by the Gringotts zone being their next port of call. Bill Weasley reported that their fight against the basilisk exhibit was proving nearly as popular as the dragon display. Watching as the director and his mate thanked those workers in the zone for allowing their skills and crafts to be witnessed left Harry thinking a few of those workers might just be making the move to Kinkusi a permanent one. It was at their next stop that Harry put his foot in his mouth, right up to his thigh. Skating. Ragnarok, I haven't done that since I was a little girl. It is a skill I never learned, dear. I would be honored to accompany you onto the ice. Ma'am. The words were out before Harry had even thought what he was saying, his father's ashen complexion telling him just how much trouble they could be in. He just offered to take the director's mate skating. Ragnarok's laughter eased the tension somewhat. You do that, Centurion. I'm sure your father and your lovely mate will keep me company while you and Rain have fun. Hermione led both goblins and the minister's party over to the Swiss-style chalet that was serving refreshments to spectators. They were sitting on terraces overlooking the skating giant snowslide and some children just happy playing in the snow. Harry was left to arrange skates and then escort Rainher onto the ice. He almost passed out as she took his arm. Relax, Harry. I wanted an opportunity to talk to you privately. While still in public view, this seemed like the perfect time. The director knows about this. Let me ask you something. Do you tell your mate everything? Yes. Well, that answers your own question. Ragnarok knew I planned to do this. I've known about you since your arrival in Gringotts. It's something my mate has agonized over for many years. Seeing you struggle in school was particularly hard for him. So naturally he spoke with his most trusted advisor. Who is your most trusted advisor? There was no hesitation with this answer. There was only one person Harry could ever give that position to. Hermione. I was telling her things about myself I'd never told anyone else within hours of us meeting. This drew a smile from Rainher as they glided gracefully around the ice. That is as it should be, Centurion. If you recall, Ragnarok awarded your mate friend's status within hours of meeting her too. In case you didn't know already, we heartily approve of your choice of mate. Harry felt about 10 feet tall hearing that. But Rainher wasn't finished yet. She was just getting started. Ragnarok is our leader, but he is also a goblin, and as a goblin he found himself getting caught up in your struggle. That was why the likes of Pitsley and Sharpshard became involved in your training. Ragnar asked them too. I also have to say though that they stayed because of you. Both now consider Harry Crow their prota. You could probably count Ragnar somewhere in there too. He could never tell you this himself, which is why we're having this chat. But on those occasions your father entered the pit. My mate had told me we may be having a son join our family. The implications of this nearly had Harry's bum hitting the ice. Only Rainhair's grip on his arm kept him upright. Ragnar has nothing but admiration for your father, and yes, we would have publicly claimed you had Barchoke fallen. Who would have dared challenge that decision? He barely managed to mumble a thank you when Rainhair dismissed it. It is I who should be thanking you, Harry. I am skating on the arm of a handsome baron in the Scottish sunshine, surrounded by a mix of people here that I still don't believe is possible. You did this, and for that you have my thanks, and a request. Please don't leave us, Harry. This had Harry's brain kicking in and shooting straight into its highest gear as things began to fall into place. He was currently skating with Rainho on his arm, while Ragnar sat chatting to Hermione and their father, in front of hundreds of goblins and wizards. This news would be all over the nation by the end of the weekend. The director and his mate were not only very publicly placing themselves behind what they were doing here, they were also giving him and Hermione the highest endorsement they could. For once Harry knew exactly how to answer. Ma'am, my Hermione fell in love with a goblin. Why would I take the risk of changing when she loves me as I am? We may leave Britain for a few years, as we pursue the university courses we want, but our hearts will always call Kinkasi home. I am certainly enough of a goblin to want to follow in my father's footsteps. Being an ambassador for the nation while he watches his grandchildren grow in Kinkasi is more than enough for us. It was almost imperceptible, but Harry was used to watching for the slightest tell from his opponent. He was sure Rainha relaxed slightly at his answer. Harry, I think it's safe to say that job will be yours if you want it. And again, thank you. Harry would never know what came over him next, Hermione called it, letting his cheeky side out to play. Ma'am, if I could, I would like to make a request of you. In 2 years from now I plan to marry my Hermione here in Kinkasi. We would be honored if you and the director would attend, and perhaps remember this occasion by dancing with the bride and groom. His skating partner's laughter told Harry he wasn't moving onto thin ice. Well played, Centurion. You read the signs and made an offer that benefits all. You will make a fine diplomat. On behalf of my mate and I, we accept both offers. Their party had a table up against the rail of the ice rink, allowing Harry and Rainhair to skate right over to them. Another 2 ice-cold glasses of goblin ale appeared on the table as they approached. The elves were really on their game. Not knowing how widespread knowledge of Harry's plans were, Rainhair spoke to her mate in their own language for a moment. We are invited back to Kinkasi in 2 years, to dance with the bride and groom at our host's wedding. She then quickly turned her attention to Hermione. Miss Granger, your mate is as smooth on the ice as he appears to be at everything he turns his hand to. There must be something he can't do. You can tell us. Hermione had felt her stomach drop at her first thought, that Harry had just been gently coaxed and cajoled into hosting another fair. Hearing their proposed wedding mentioned was music to her ears, so much so that she missed their father's shock at Harry's audacity. Not missing a beat, Hermione answered Rainhair's question with a straight face. I can honestly say that Harry is without doubt the worst singer I have ever heard. Our familiars have more musical ability in them than Harry does. Thinking of the pussycat and the owl saw Harry reach over and take Hermione's hand. Pussy said to the owl, "You elegant fowl, how charmingly sweet you sing. Oh, let us be married, too long we have tarried. You are mine, Hermione, and we will make it official." Harry's lips brushed the back of her hand, noticing the passion reflected in her warm brown eyes. Poetry and a proposal was something he knew she would appreciate. It was with a fair bit of a struggle he managed to turn his gaze away and address their other guests. Minister, the summer after next there will be an even more auspicious celebration held in Kinkasi. Miss Granger and I will become husband and wife. You and your wife will of course be invited. Please keep that to yourselves for now. At this particular moment I can't actually remember if I've officially asked Dan for his permission yet. I would hate to do a Mr. Diggory and put my foot in it. This had the entire party laughing as Amos was currently on the ice skating with his wife. Tabata, though, appeared to be giving him the cold shoulder for his earlier faux pas. Harry had a thought and decided just to go for it. The people here could certainly make this wish happen, and he knew it's what the girl whose hand he was still holding really wanted. I was wondering if there was any precedent for granting a Muggle clergyman dispensation to know about our world, specifically so they could marry a couple who were both magical. The Reverend Richards is a really nice guy, and ideally who we would want to perform the ceremony. He couldn't help but notice there was something different here though, especially with my father at my side. Both leaders thought this was a great idea. A Muggle ceremony favored neither the ministry nor Gringotts, yet they would still be amongst the wedding guests. It was Amelia though who came up with the answer. If you give me his name and address, I can do some investigating before making an approach. If he's not agreeable or won't keep our secrets, we would have to obliviate our approach from his memory and leave it at that. It was only the barrier between them that stopped Hermione pouncing on Harry. The Reverend Richards marrying them in Kinkissi with their family and friends present would really be a dream come true. The way she was squeezing his hand though spoke of promises to come. It was during these pleasant thoughts of just what those promises could be that the alarm saw Harry shoot up in bed, barely contemplating he'd just dozed off. "What's that, Harry? It can't be time to get up." "It's not, Nev. That's the house alarm set in the master suite. It means guards have had to enter the house." Harry had his sword in his hand and was making for the door. Neville and Draco were right behind him. Camp beds were being liberally used this weekend as Crow's Nest was full to bursting. The three raced down the stairs to find half a dozen warriors waiting on them, along with a couple of prisoners. Harry gave the centurion's salute even though he was standing there in nothing but his boxers, before barking out an order. "Report. We spotted 3 male youths from the circus exhibition making their way to the boating lake. They were drinking and talking about the young females they were supposedly meeting in less than complimentary terms. When we discovered one of those females had slipped out of Crow's Nest, I gave the order to intercept and apprehend them." "Very well done, Squad Commander. You also have my personal thanks." Harry then turned his attention and growing ire to the 2 girls. "Well, what have you got to say for yourselves?" Neither girl lifted their heads as Lavender spoke. "We were only having a bit of fun, Harry." "Fun? So your idea of fun is to slip out late at night to meet boys?" I stood beside Aura Tonks when she specifically said no one was to sneak about at night. "What is so special about you two that these rules don't apply?" Harry wasn't expecting an answer, and didn't receive one. "Miss Brown, are your parents coming to Kinkissi tomorrow? Or should that be today?" "Yes, Harry. They're really—" Harry cut right across her. "Miss Brown, I shall meet them as they arrive and ask that they take you home. You are here as my guest, and have abused that hospitality. It's only the knowledge that our security forces have had a very busy few days, and will have faced the same again tomorrow, that's stopping me having them returning you home right now. Harry, please don't do this. My mum and dad have been so looking forward to this. Miss Brown, your own actions leave me no other options. Miss Patil, Baron Crow, could I have a word? Please." Harry turned to see they now had an audience. As he'd raced out his room, Harry hadn't closed the door or switched off the alarm. Most of his guests were arranged on the stairs or landing, watching what was happening. Harry apparently only thought he was angry. Compared to Romrichi, he wasn't really trying. The father appeared ready to explode, though it was his other daughter who had spoken. "Harry, could I stand guarantee for Parvati's behavior for the rest of the fair? Are you sure about this, Padma? If she misbehaves again, I would need to ask you to leave too. I've said you would always be welcome in any home of mine. I really don't want to do this. Please, Harry, she's my sister. I promise you she won't be going for a pee without me being beside her. Pav won't sneak past me again." A glance at Ranro received a slight nod, so Harry followed his lead and nodded his agreement to Padma. Padma whispered her thanks as she stormed past him to grab her twin. Parvati was then dragged up to their room. While Harry was asking the squad commander for more details, and to return Lavender personally to Professor McGonagall, Hermione grabbed Pansy and asked her to bunk with Luna and Sapphire in her room. Everyone could see there was going to be words between the Patil sisters. Hermione knew her best friend could be fierce when she lost her temper, and Padma was one angry witch at the moment. Parvati was discovering just how angry her twin was, as she practically threw her into their room. The door was closed, and then Padma had her pinned to the bed. Parvati's hands were being held above her head while her twins sat on her. You will tell me what the fuck is going on in that thing you call a brain and why I had to embarrass everyone to save your ass. You didn't save Lavender. McGonagall will eat her alive. Parvati, please listen to me. You are in so much shit at the moment that Lavender needs to be the last thing on your mind. Tell me everything now, so we can see if this situation is as bad as it looks. Seeing how angry Padma was, she began telling her sister what happened. We got talking to the three boys while on our lunch break and they were keen to meet up. We didn't have any free time though, so had to meet them at night. 3 boys? How was that supposed to work? Parvati tried to look away, but Padma was denying her that option. I told them I was an identical twin. They were very keen that you should come too. We were just going to say you couldn't make it. Pav, you have no idea how close I am to punching you in the face at the moment. You and your stupid friend were sneaking off to meet 3 guys who work in the circus. I actually don't think this could be any worse. This isn't some Midnight Under the Stars situation like that trashy romance rubbish you and Lavender read. This is real life. Do you have any idea what happens in real life with situations like that? We were just going to have some fun. That's all. Oh, I'm sure they would have had fun. You would have ended up like Jenny Abercrombie. I like Jenny. What's wrong with that? Pov, I never meant to say anything about that. And if you repeat this to anyone, I'll cut your tongue out myself. Pov looked angry enough to do it too, so Parvati quickly swore to speak to no one about what she was about to hear. Jenny was 17 when she attended a party she has no memory of. 9 months later, Ewan was born. Her parents kicked her out on the street. All the plans she had for the rest of her life went down the toilet too. She works in a shop to pay rent for their tiny flat, and to feed the both of them, her family won't acknowledge either her or Ewan. She could see Parvati wasn't sure if she was making this up just to scare her. Padma then revealed her source. Harry checks up on everyone who's getting a Potter scholarship, but Choke and Harry will be responsible for Ewan for the next 7 years. He's already looking at ways to help Jenny, and he hadn't met her before yesterday. What do you think he would have done to any boy who did that to you? There would have been a murder. Padman and that circus would have been out of business before they knew it. I never asked for this. And you won't have to worry about it much longer, Dad. We'll probably have you shipped off to live with Ninama after that tonight. No, he wouldn't. If I hadn't stepped in, Harry was going to be forced to ask our father to take you home. How do you think Father is going to react? I know you hated it there when we used to visit. And Dad knows that too. Ninama won't even let you look at a boy. Far less flirt with one. You'll be in a sari down to your ankles and made to cover your head. Makeup and fashion will be things of the past. Our grandmother has totally different ideas of what fun is. Padma got off her sister and drew her wand. Parvati was pleased to see her twin was casting spells on the door and window instead of at her. But she was puzzled too. What are you doing? Making sure you don't go anywhere without me. You need the loo. You either wake me up or go on the floor. I'm serious, Pav. You are my responsibility until the fair is over. You even try and dodge me and I swear you'll need that hat because I'll scalp you. Now get into bed. There was a few moments of silence before Parvati spoke. Padma, how can I fix this? I really don't think you can, Pav. To have any chance though, you need to be the dutiful Indian daughter our parents expect. You have always pushed the boundaries, but this time you knocked it clean out the park of what's acceptable. Get some sleep, we're going to need it. Parvati didn't think she would be sleeping tonight. There was a lot of thinking to be done. She couldn't spare any of those thoughts for Lavender's plight. Dragging McGonagall out of bed to tell her they'd sneaked off would not be pretty. She had her father and the entire family to face in the morning. That thought was more than enough to keep her awake. As the twins walked down to breakfast the following morning, Parvati had decided that her sister's advice was really the only option available to her. She approached Harry as soon as they entered. Baron Crow, I abused your hospitality and humbly beg your forgiveness. You have my word. I won't be anywhere near those boys or the circus again. Harry's voice was hard and cold as he answered her. That problem has already been taken care of. The circus was asked to leave last night by our security forces. The looks Harry was getting from the rest of the family told the twins this was news to them too. Parvati, though, was trapped in Harry's powerful gaze. Our security forces followed those three from the moment they left their enclosure. They easily got close enough to hear what was being said. Their plan was to get three silly girls drunk and have their fun with them, knowing they would be out of the country the following day. Padma had to grab her twin as she started to sway at that, but Harry had more to say. Know this, Parvati. Goblins have been forbidden from interfering in the affairs of wizards for centuries. They nearly took no action last night, only discovering these boys intended the sister of two friends of our nation to be one of their victims. Saw them intervene. You may have thought I was being harsh on you and Lavender. What do you think now you know the alternative? Parvati couldn't answer because she was racing out the room with her hands covering her mouth. Padma and Smita were hot on her heels. Ramrao, I'm sorry I had to do that. Harry, don't even think about apologizing. If those security forces hadn't stopped them. Hermione was sitting beside Harry and slipped her hand into his. I'll go with you when you meet the Browns, if you want, for moral support. I'd like that. Dan and Lucas, we go with the reserve for the 5 o'clock slot. We should have done that anyway, rather than inviting people who would try something like that into our glen. Jenny, could you walk with us? There's something we'd like to talk with you about, and if yesterday is any guide, we may not get the time later. Jenny had been sitting there with her jaw hanging open at the drama being played out at breakfast. She'd thought those two girls were incredibly naive and far too young to be carrying on like that. Harry's attitude was so far removed from her own parents though as to be scary. These girls may not think so at the moment, but he had just done them a massive service, and ejected the people responsible right off his land. It was also a shock when he asked to speak to her, but she was coming to trust this young man more and more. She followed Harry and Hermione out the door, not realizing her life would never be the same again. Alice tried to fill the silence around the table by asking Dan what the reserve plan was. We're in the Highlands, so Harry thought of showing some of what we Muggles call Highland games. Barchoke found us the dancers and pipers we had performing at various locations around the glen yesterday. We pull them in and add things like caber tossing, hammer throwing, and we even have a children's version, welly throwing. We plan on getting volunteers from the audience to try the events, with prizes for the winners. Parvati returned, still rather green and clearly shaky on her feet. Father, I'm so sorry. Ramrao was not in the mood to offer her any comfort. His mind still fighting against what might have happened if Harry's security hadn't intervened. You will be with Padma all day, and tonight too. We'll talk of this Monday morning. She nodded and sat at the table. Nothing more than tea though passed her lips. The fair had been blessed with another sunny day. It did little to lighten Harry's dark mood. He got right to the point. Jenny, there's a spell a witch or wizard can perform that can wipe a person's memories. It's illegal for a magical user to perform this spell on anyone, with the exception of it being done to protect knowledge of our world escaping. You will have gathered by now that our society also has those who think rules and laws don't apply to them. Jenny stopped as if she had just walked into a brick wall. Is that why I can't remember? Is that why my son is a wizard? There's no way to know for certain after all this time, but the facts paint that as the most likely scenario. Hermione had her arm around the now crying woman. That's just. The sudden look of horror on Jenny's face stopped her tears. They couldn't take Ewan away from me, could they? Over my dead body. The conviction Harry stated that wither was the only thing that allowed Jenny to get herself back under control. If you allow Ewan to become a Potter scholar, I will be his guardian in the magical world, until he turns 17 and is then considered of age. That just means I look after his interests in that world. I could never see any circumstances where it would be in Ewan's best interests to part him from you. I hope you believe me when I say that. Jenny was nodding while wiping her eyes with the hanky Hermione had conjured. Ewan badly needs a male figure in his life, someone he can look up to. Just watching you for the last few days has my son already choosing that figure to be Harry Crow. The red-headed gentleman at the Gringotts Zone told us that giant snake thing really happened. Ewan already wants a sword for Christmas. That gentleman is a friend and tutors us every weekend at Hogwarts. And yes, it's a true representation. The person who set that beast loose was in prison days later. He died there. We're trying to clean up our act. This weekend is certainly helping with that. We also want to see if we can help you too. I thought you were offering Ewan that scholarship is a godsend. He wouldn't be able to attend Hogwarts otherwise. It was Hermione who then took over the explanation. That helps Ewan but not you. You had dreams that we think some wizard took from you. With Ewan away in Hogwarts, we're offering you the chance to rekindle those dreams. We're offering you the same deal as Ewan except at the university of your choice. Jenny was again in tears, though this time for a different reason. Why are you doing this, Harry? Because it's the right thing to do. Hermione found herself faced by two bemused expressions, and wore a wide smile. Yes, Jenny. He's for real, and all mine. She kissed Harry, instantly wiping that bemused look of his face. My wonderful goblin here thinks he should personally right every wrong in the world. He may not get them all, but that doesn't mean he's going to stop trying. There are also properties the length and breadth of the country that were bought to protect the people called Potter living there. We should find something suitable for you and Ewan. You're giving me a house? What's wrong with my flat? We can't ward a block of flats, because Ewan only lives in one of them. He'll be at Hogwarts so you can go to whatever university you want. You'll have no rent to pay, and we'll take care of everything else. You'll be able to concentrate on your studies. Jenny's bemused look was back, so Harry tried to explain how he felt, and why he was doing this. When the idea of the Potter scholarships were first put forward, I said I wanted it to be like a family. This scholarship is in honor of my mum and dad. How could I not want it to be like family? I consider everyone in that house family. A family we hope you and Ewan will join. That was too much for the woman whose only family since she was 17 had been Ewan. She was in floods of tears with an arm around each of the teens. I didn't really realize how much I missed my family until now. You have no idea how much this means to me. Harry lifted her chin until he was looking into her tearful eyes. Jenny, 3 years ago my family was my father and me. I now love every person in that house, even Parvati, and would do anything for them. I know exactly how you feel. So now that you have some idea of what you're getting yourselves into, would you like to be part of our ever-growing family? I'd love to, Harry. And it will make Ewan so happy too. Great! Aurora is coming today, so I'll introduce the quirks to you later. Now I have to go and see if there is anything of Lavender left to hand over to her parents. Professor McGonagall is not someone you want to cross. Jenny wisely decided to give that experience a miss. She headed back to the house to give Ewan the yes. Her son was waiting for. If the tasks hadn't been handed out beforehand, Parvati would have thought this had been done purely to torture her. Frank and Alice were in charge of the water zone, and that's where Neville and Padma were stationed too. Where Padma went, Parvati was now duty-bound to follow. She found herself working at the site of their supposed moonlit romantic rendezvous. That was apparently only her and Lavender's version of their supposed liaison. It would seem the boys they were supposed to meet had certain other ideas. Parvati had no reason to doubt the honesty of Harry's explanation. Someone who had already saved her life at least twice really had to be trusted. There was a large paved area in the water zone that had 60 recessed fountains in between the paving. These fountains would randomly shoot water 15 feet into the air, making a great game for the youngsters as they walked about this area, not knowing where their next soaking was coming from. Parvati was stationed at the side of this area to offer drying charms to anyone who was finished, or had just exited the water ride. Standing here though also gave her an uninterrupted view of the lake. She watched Percy and Penny get into one of the boats and snuggle up as the craft took them on an automated gentle tour of the beautiful manufactured lake. Both clearly portrayed the romance Parvati was so desperate to find. That desperation was also clear for her twin to see. Penny told Hermione and me that she started noticing Percy watching her when they were in 4th year. They shared classes and had talked many times, but it wasn't until they hit 5th year that he asked her to be his girlfriend. They have known each other for 7 years, and been a couple for nearly 3, that's why they look so comfortable together. You're never going to get that with someone you've just met. I know, sis, Just as I know Harry saved my life again. Lavender and I really screwed up. And the whole of Hogwarts will know by now. People will think we both knew what we were letting ourselves in for last night. Our reputations will already be ruined, even although we didn't even get there and nothing happened. No decent boy will come anywhere near me now. First the diary and now this. Just how stupid can I be? As the tears started to fall, Padma signaled to Neville she was taking Parvati for a break, deciding to take her back to Crow's Nest for a cup of tea and a bite to eat. They headed off before Parvati's tears got any worse. I think I'll ask Father to send me to Grandma, at least I won't have to go back to Hogwarts and have everyone staring at me again. You know our friends will support you. Yes, Harry was very angry this morning. But Parvati, he had good reason to be. This is exactly what we talked about, your behavior putting all of us in a bad position. Harry wouldn't have backed down last night for anyone else but me asking. I know that and hated putting him in that position. But you're my sister, a sister I've loved my entire life. We can't keep pulling your ass out the fire though. We might not get there quickly enough next time. I know I need to change, I just don't know how, or even what I want anymore. You had a nice, handsome, steady boyfriend, but threw that away looking for sparks, romance and adventure. What? You don't agree? Susan told me Blaise was handsome and it was you yourself who said there was no spark. You ask Hermione if she's looking for adventure, and I'll bet her answer will be the same as mine. The day after Voldemort is defeated, I will be having a lie-in. No more running, no more training, just as boringly normal a life as it's possible to have. Padma, you're 14 yet have the long bottom ring on your finger, a goblin blade at your hip and an Order of Merlin, first class hanging on your wall at home right beside your Goblin Award for bravery. I hate to burst your bubble, sis, but that's not normal. It is for us, Pav, and I think that's part of your problem. You see how close Neville and I are, but you don't see all the hours of blood, sweat and tears it's taken to get there. We've both had extra classes together every weekend since first year, as well as now training every morning. We've faced death together and fought for our lives at each other's side. That definitely changes you, Pav. You're comparing yourself to me, but our lives took different paths. The night that Troll tried to attack us, you saw the both of us and Hermione marrying Harry as an obvious solution. I just wanted to be his friend. It was like lightning striking for Parvati as she saw the truth in her sister's words. I cried most of that day because Harry rejected me. You had lunch with Harry and his father. We took different paths and ended up different people. As Harry says, Pav, we're all different. The differences between us were always there. They just got wider from then on. You're still my sister though. A sister I love. Nothing is going to change that. Padma was glad they were nearly at Crow's Nest. Parvati's tears were really flowing now. Something told her she was really getting through to her twin today. Padma could only hope it wouldn't be too late to do any good. Harry didn't think the Brown situation could have gone much worse. McGonagall was spitting tax mad and had made Lavender sleep in the same room as her, ensuring the girl wouldn't go wandering again. They left with McGonagall's promises of retribution against both girls ringing in their ears. Then things went really downhill. Lavender's father refused point-blank to believe his daughter could do something like that. His position shifting from the security forces got it wrong, all the way over to them outright lying to get his good little girl in trouble. Harry was saved the trouble of throwing them out his Glen by Tonks. He was really relieved to see her. There was of course a security presence at the portkey points. Being confronted by auras though did little for Lavender's father's temper. His daughter stood quietly throughout the entire encounter as Tonks explained the Brown family's available choices: return home or visit the inside of a ministry cell for trespassing. They wisely decided to go home, swearing that this matter wasn't over. The meeting with the Quirks also threw up its own set of problems. They were a rural family who would be considered poor. They of course didn't see themselves as such. They led lives that were self-sufficient, more used to bartering with their neighbors for items they couldn't produce themselves than actually buying anything. Harry trying to hand Orla a small sack of gold appeared to be the tipping point. We Quirks are neither your charity. I dinna want my daughter to be looked down upon for this. Sir, that is the last thing on my mind. The other Potter scholar is a Muggle born. This is their first venture into this world. They had never even heard of our currency, so I gave them some to allow them to buy a few souvenirs of their visit. My only intention here was to treat both scholars as equals. They had introduced Luna as one of the first Potter Scholarship students, and she tried to put their fears to rest. Mr. Quirk, rather than being looked down upon, Orla is far more likely to be looked up to. The Potter Scholarships are very much sought after. They are certainly not regarded as charity. There will be a lot of students at Hogwarts wishing they were in Orla's shoes. Neither of Orla's parents had attended Hogwarts. They got by learning whatever magic their family, friends and neighbors could teach them as they had grown up. Orla was going to be following the same well-trodden path before this McGonagall witch turned up on their doorstep. Here was an opportunity to have someone with a formal education, and all the books that went with that education, in their small community. Orla could teach all of them what she was learning, and someone else was paying for it. It was only when Finn laid eyes on this magnificent fair that the panic began to set in. Would their little Aura come back to them after experiencing things like this? Hermione could see the panic setting in. She just didn't know the reason behind it. Mr. and Mrs. Quirk, today is about having fun, not making decisions. Please accept our hospitality and enjoy yourselves. We have arranged lunch with the rest of the Potter scholars, and you are welcome to ask any and all questions then. It will be later on in the summer before we visit Diagon Alley to get Orla kitted out. You have weeks yet before you need to make a final decision. The relief was there for all to see. That sounds braw, lassie. We're nae used to things like this. Or as money folk. I've ne'er actually seen as money folk. But Finn just counted everyone he could see as folk. Certainly pleased Harry and Hermione. Luna then volunteered be their guide for the day, something all three Quirks rapidly accepted, before Hermione had to make their apologies. I'm really sorry, but we really have to go. There will be at least 5,000 of those folk waiting to see Harry cross swords with his tutor. Luna will look after you, and we'll meet again for lunch. By the time Harry walked into the arena, he'd had one hell of a morning. He was certainly experienced enough to know that he needed to clear his mind of everything unrelated to his fight, otherwise this could get really embarrassing and be over very quickly. As they traded their first few blows, Harry found himself rejoicing in the battle. Here all he had to worry about was blocking his tutor's attacks. Something Harry had years of practice at. He was so in the zone that Harry didn't think he had ever fought better. Wave after wave of attacks were repelled while he even got a few in of his own. This was unbelievable. He was actually beating Master Sharp. Harry's last 3 attacks had progressively gotten closer to finishing the fight. His tutor was tiring and his student was sure he had him now. The cry of time from the referee saw Harry stop at once, any thoughts of victory banished. He deactivated his armor, sheathed his blades before bowing to his opponent, and then almost fell to the pitch. Harry's vision was going grey around the edges, but there was no mistaking the large hand that clamped on his shoulder. Steady, Centurion. I will not accept a cheap victory now. You will walk out of this arena at my side, then fall into the arms of your mate. She's standing there waiting for you. The thought of Hermione waiting on him kept Harry putting one foot in front of the other. Only Master Sharpshard's arm around his shoulders, though, kept him upright. The entire stadium might be on their feet applauding like crazy, but Harry was having real trouble staying on his. He'd gotten lost in the battle and used his magic to enhance his armor for too long a period. He only made it to Hermione because his opponent practically carried him the last 10 yards. Hermione had him in her arms, but a moment before the healers took over, Harry was soon on a bed being examined. The healer didn't take long to reach his conclusion. Your mate is exhausted. We will give him a potion that will see him sleep for a few hours, then another when he awakes. We realize the Baron has duties, otherwise we would be confining him to bed until tomorrow. He must eat when he wakes and nothing strenuous for the rest of the day. A good night's sleep should see him fine tomorrow. The first potion was already working, and Harry was out like a light. Hermione called for some help. Betsy, can you take Harry and put him in my bed? Please sit with him and come for me when he wakes. Barchoke, Ragnarok and Rainhair had all entered as Hermione knelt to ask her elf to look after Harry. Barchoke, confirming that this was her normal behavior, saw Hermione's star rise just that little bit higher. She then attempted to thank the director for signaling time on the match. Nonsense, your mate would have defeated Master Sharpshard, only to then collapse exhausted on the grass. This way both of them left the arena with great honor. That was without doubt the greatest match I have ever seen, a very fitting tribute to a wonderful weekend. Dobby was sent to inform Emma that Harry was fine, didn't have a mark on him, but was knackered. Emma should come to the house for lunch if she wanted to see for herself. Harry was wakening from a nice dream and felt someone running their fingers through his hair. His mumbled Hermione drew a giggle that was not his mate's. Harry wasn't worried though. He recognized it at once. You must be really tired if you though I was Hermione. Hi Mum, where is she? What's happening? Hermione is currently playing hostess. Since the host is temporarily indisposed at the moment, your fight with Master Sharpshard is the talk of the Glen, easily eclipsing that Susan beat Draco to win the shooting. You need to eat something, drink this potion and then come downstairs before lunch is over. Emma leaned over and kissed him on the forehead before heading out the room. Betsy then appeared with a tray for him and stood there until he ate what was on it. Harry came down to what was a very busy dining room. Pleased to see Orla sitting between Ewan and Danis. That both boys were trying to explain Tom and Jerry to the bewildered witch brought a smile to Harry's lips. She must have visited the cinema tent. Hermione was soon kissing those lips before bringing him up to speed. The quirks looked far more comfortable now, Hermione confirming that Luna had done a wonderful job. She'd led the overawed family around the Glen, taking time to introduce them to people as they went along. Hearing the positive responses they received every time Orla was introduced as a Potter scholar had convinced her parents this was an offer they simply couldn't refuse. The stadium had been full to capacity for Harry's fight, and it was reckoned there were another couple of thousand who had watched it standing around the open area. Most sitting at lunch had been there and no one begrudged Harry a lie down. After that effort, getting all the parents together certainly had an effect on the quirks and even Jenny, with nothing but praise for the Potter scholarship raining down on both lots of parents. Ewan and Orla would now be joining the program. All were making plans to join up for their shopping in Diagon Alley. Harry though was looking at Emma when he said those plans might change at the last minute. Again, no one could fault Harry for that. Harry was trying his best to ensure Hermione couldn't fault him for this either. He was standing amid the holyhead harpies and the photographer was making more and more outrageous suggestions as he searched for the picture that would make him the most money. Okay, Gwenog. Perhaps you could kiss him now. Perhaps not. The harpies fell about laughing at the sight of Hermione's blade resting jokingly on the photographer's cheek. He took it all in good fun, and got his picture of a kiss anyway. The harpies shouted Hermione over, got her into one of their famous green jerseys, and Harry was more than happy to kiss his mate. Surrounded by the entire team, they had drawn quite a crowd, and the harpies then went on to sign autographs and pose for pictures with as many of that crowd as they could, or right beside a rather large stand selling harpies merchandise. Harry consulted Hermione about size before buying one for Sapphire. The number of goblins now wearing Quidditch merchandise was pleasing to more than him. Harry was being forced to take things easy for the rest of the day, so he actually sat and watched the Quidditch match. Even although the game was being played with a large element of fun, Lee's hilarious commentary certainly adding to that, there was still enough skill on display for the purists to enjoy. Harry's last official duties of the day was a meet and greet of the Weird Sisters, posing for the obligatory photograph, and thanking them for performing. It was during their set that Hermione saw he was running on empty. She took him by the arm and they headed for home. Only the people bunking in Crow's Nest would be staying in the Glen tonight. Everyone else would be heading for the Portkey points and making their way home after the concert. Harry half-heartedly mentioned that they should perhaps go down there and say goodbye to their guests. Hermione kissing him blew that notion right out of his head. Her kisses had fireworks going off literally. They were shooting over the stadium as Lee's voice rang out, thanking everyone for coming and wishing them a safe journey home. I think that's job done, Harry. Oh no, I want a lot more of those kisses. They say you should always leave an audience wanting more. An audience? Yes. Your mate? No. They carried on like this as they made their way to Crow's Nest, stopping every so often to kiss. Both knew the security forces would be escorting everyone to the Portkey points before doing a final sweep of the Glen. Tomorrow the cleanup operations would begin, and soon it would be time to go to their island, Both teams could hardly wait. Bella could hardly wait to pick up their baby boy but knew she needed a shower first. His father's voice soothed Marvolo until she returned with all traces of the undead washed off her. As she picked up their son, it was Augustus' turn to try and wash away the grime of a long and terrible night. The water wouldn't wash away the memories though. He just didn't like working with the undead who would. This was the first time they had left Marvolo alone, but the sleeping charms had held. Their son had only woken when they entered the room. It had taken the three of them working hard all through the night to accomplish his master's plan. Augustus had to admit that plan would see this horror talked about all over the world. To know that this was then only phase 1 of that plan had Augustus once more in awe of their master's genius. The Kinyacy Fair had meant their efforts had gone completely unnoticed by the ministry, with only a few muggles needing their memories altered when they'd stumbled across them. The occupants of their island were now hoping this Baron's Fair was a great success that would give people the confidence and encouragement to attend the Quidditch World Cup final. The mere thought of the mayhem they'd planned being released on 100,000 witches and wizards was a sweet one. It was so sweet that Bella was singing about it while their son fed at her breast. Inferi didn't really rhyme with anything, but Augustus had no intention of pointing this out to Bella. She was happy and Marvolo was content in his mother's arms. That was all that mattered to him. Baron of Kinyacy embraces many cultures, but only kisses one witch. That provocative headline certainly had an image to match it. Harry was pictured with a harpies-clad Hermione in his arms, lovingly kissing her while the rest of the team looked on and cheered. Rather than being embarrassed, Harry thought it was a great headline and an even better picture. All those who had been staying in Crow's Nest were sitting having breakfast. The Creevies, McDonald's and Abercrombies would be leaving Kinyacy directly after this. Multiple editions of the Daily Prophet were spread around the table, though the front page had caught everyone's attention. There was actually a souvenir supplement inside containing loads of pictures and interviews of the entire weekend. A representative from Honeydukes was quoted as saying they originally thought they'd brought enough stock to last for the entire weekend, only to have to send for more on Saturday afternoon. Needless to say, they were delighted about this. Barchoke arrived to give them the latest news from Gringotts, and it was all good. Apart from my heart stopping beating when Harry invited the director's mate to skate. It was a wonderful weekend. The only thing we can compare the buzz around Gringotts at the moment to is the day we gave the children free gold. Only this time it feels even better. There is a real sense of pride running through Gringotts today. A pride that few have ever felt before. The nation certainly enjoyed its weekend in the sun. All could see the tension that had plagued the nation's ambassador lately had now melted clean away, rather like the ice zone when the charms were removed. Barchoke's smile was wide and infectious. The ministry are rightly taking plaudits for their wonderful stadium, but everything else was built by goblins, with a lot of design help from the people in this room. No one can remember when the director has been so pleased, or morale in Gringotts any higher. I think we've easily outstripped every single goal we set ourselves, not something any of us were confident of achieving this time last week. I was asked to convey a very heartfelt thanks and a sincere well done to everyone involved, from the director on behalf of the nation. How did the stalls do? Harry was interested to see if the fair was a commercial success too. His father's wide grin never faltered, giving the answer before Barchoke even spoke. What to us in Gringotts are mere trinkets and knickknacks witches and wizards were queuing 6 deep to get their hands on. Work our apprentices manufactured would normally sit on workshop shelves gathering dust or become children's playthings. Today every one of those shelves is empty. Throughout the glen they sold everything they brought to Kinyacy. Goblins too were spending gold at all different establishments. We don't usually have access to places like Honeydukes or Fortescues. I also spotted quite a few of our citizens with Quidditch paraphernalia. This generated a fair amount of laughter at the table, since Sapphire was sitting at breakfast wearing the harpies top Harry had bought her. It was an also smiling Amelia who then portkeyed into Crow's Nest and gave the ministry's response to the fair. Again it was overwhelmingly positive. You really opened some eyes over the course of the weekend, Harry. Right throughout the glen, your policy of treating everyone the same was there for all to see. The way you handled your request to the minister was wonderfully done too. Cornelius wants me to contact this Reverend Richards as soon as possible. A pair of loud whats from the end of the table saw Harry letting Dan and Emma into the plan. We never seem to get time to tell you, but I asked if the Reverend Richards could receive a dispensation to be informed about magic specifically so he could come to Kincussy and perform the marriage ceremony for our wedding. I can't see the guests we want to be there fitting into the parish church in Crawley, can you? Emma was threatening tears at hearing that news. She was blaming her hormones for her emotions being all over the place, when Hermione had another idea that this time did produce those happy tears. Mum, Reverend Richards could come here to christen James. This comment also generated some strange glances before Dan decided to come clean. Our son will be named James Granger, using his brother's middle name. Neville, Padma, would you be his godparents? The young couple were visibly gobsmacked at hearing that request. Those expressions, though, were soon replaced by large smiles. Both quickly agreed before Padma turned to her best friends and summed up their feelings in one sentence. We're going to be your brother's godparents. That makes us real family. On that happy note, it was time to say goodbye to the three families. Little Maggie Creevy was wearing her fair hat to breakfast, her mother jokingly confirming her daughter wouldn't be parted from it and had worn it to bed too. Dennis, Ewan and Natalie had all exchanged phone numbers, but this set Harry thinking. Perhaps it was time to add an owl to their Hogwarts package. While there was always school owls available that allowed them to send messages home from Hogwarts, they were effectively cut off from their magical friends for the duration of the summer. Jenny had confessed to Hermione. She didn't have the qualifications she required to get into the university course she'd originally chosen, her last year of school being a washout. Hermione advised her to still pick a university, and they would see what housing they had near that location. Getting them moved and protected by wards should be done first, then Jenny could work on those entry qualifications. Both Ewan and Jenny agreed. This was easily the best weekend of their lives. The family then moved through to the large lounge. They knew there was a serious issue to deal with. Barchoke had some information, though, that he hadn't want to bring up until it was just family. Adam Brown visited Gringotts yesterday and emptied their family vault. He was loudly claiming that we goblins had besmirched his family's good name and his daughter's honor. He's denying Lavender was in any way involved in this incident and trying to push any blame onto Parvati. The silence this news generated was broken by Amelia. Of all the many owls the ministry received regarding the fair, only one was negative. Adam Brown has made a complaint against Aura Tonks for her handling of the situation yesterday. Tonks was sitting beside Remus, the Aura once more reverting to Harry's protection detail. Boss, the Baron of Kincussy told this pompous prick that Lavender had abused his hospitality. The Brown family were then asked to leave. I simply pointed out to him that his refusal to do so would be breaking the law, something we would then have to deal with. Amelia stopped Tonks saying any more, totally agreeing with her Aura on this matter. I've also had Minerva on the flu. He contacted her too and complained bitterly about Minerva's treatment of his daughter. He's threatening to withdraw Lavender from Hogwarts, unless the school can guarantee there will be no contact between his daughter and the witch trying to lead her astray. Parvati Patil. A shocked and tearful Parvati was sitting between Padma and Neville. The wizard soon found himself being shifted along as Hermione took his place. Padma already had her arm comfortingly around her twin, so Hermione took Parvati's hand before speaking with her. Harry and I watched this man build himself into a state over this yesterday. He just said Lavender wouldn't do anything like that and she never contradicted him. For once Lavender hadn't a single thing to say. There's not one person here who thinks you were leading Lavender astray. She's selling you down the river to escape the punishment she deserves. Can you see Susan doing something like that to Hannah? That would simply never happen. I watched Padma stand in front of 9 older bullies and take a curse to the face trying to protect me. That is real friendship. It was then Padma's turn to try and help her sister. Padmas, we all know you like to push the boundaries. We also know that when you're alongside Lavender you both push further. She's obviously not the friend you thought Lavender was. If she's pushing all the blame onto you, I have to say that splitting you two up isn't the worst idea I've ever heard. You would certainly be made welcome if you wanted to bunk with us in the Ravenclaw dorm. Two Hufflepuffs quickly agreed with that. Hannah getting in first. You could stay with me and Susan. Yeah, Lavender's not welcome in Hufflepuff though. She's hardly displaying loyalty to her supposed best friend. Even Pansy chipped in. After this weekend, I think we could even get away with a Gryffindor in the Slytherin dorms. If you're up for the challenge, you'd certainly be made welcome by the rest of the new fourth-year Slytherin girls. The support she was being shown from her friends couldn't quite make up for the heartache of being dumped on by the witch who'd been her best friend, and confidant almost every day for the last 3 years. It was all going to be irrelevant anyway. Her father appeared ready to explode as his anger built. She got up and went to kneel by her father. Father, I'm really sorry my behavior has put you in this position. I made a really bad error of judgment that Harry's security thankfully saved me from facing the consequences of. I have brought shame and embarrassment to our family and deserve to face whatever punishment you set. I promise to try and be a dutiful daughter from this day on, a daughter you can be proud of. Ravenclaw was as angry as he could ever remember. He tried to control that anger as he spoke to his daughter. Parvati, your behavior was way beyond anything your mother and I find acceptable. We had decided to send you back to India. We hoped living with my mother for a while might help you see the error of your ways. Parvati's head may be down, but everyone could still see the tears flowing. Padme too was in tears, and she wasn't the only one. Ravenclaw, though, wasn't finished yet. Lavender's father's reaction has changed everything. In trying to protect his own daughter, he's attempting to push all the blame onto mine. For us to send you away now would lend credence to his opinion. That is not something I could ever support. This saw Parvati's head shoot up and her father reached out and wiped away her tears. While Lavender appears happy to play along with her father's version of events, my daughter has admitted her error and apologized for her serious lack of judgment. Whatever we decide, and we will talk about that later, one thing is not up for debate. Your association with this girl is now at an end. Augusta hated interrupting what was a very tender moment between father and daughter. She did want to give them some options, though. Lavender was under the care of Hogwarts while staying here, and you can guess how well Professor McGonagall will have reacted to Adam Brown, berating her for reprimanding his daughter. Lavender might actually be the one leaving Hogwarts if Minerva doesn't get an apology. Parvati was her parents' responsibility and is therefore in no trouble with the school over this matter. I would have to speak with Phileas and Minerva, but I don't see any major problems with a Gryffindor staying in Ravenclaw that can't be overcome, especially with her twin sister already sorted there. This was Barchoke's cue to add to the story. Adam Brown is a fool. If there is one thing being a parent has taught me, it's that we all make mistakes. It's admitting those mistakes and figuring out where we go from there that makes us who we are. Adam Brown thinks that by playing on his pure blood credentials and shouting loudly, people will simply believe what he says. He closed his family vault in Gringotts, but simply ignored the fact that his entire business is financed and run through our bank. This had everyone paying attention. They all knew the Goblins' reputation as a warrior race was well earned, and that they wouldn't hesitate bringing some retaliation of their own to this matter. They were of course right. His version of this incident would need to have goblin warriors either deliberately lying, or even worse, abducting his daughter out of her bed to march her into Crow's Nest. The director has given him until 8 o'clock tonight to publicly recant those accusations inside the bank, otherwise his business account will be closed and Gringotts will require all their loans to be repaid in full, and immediately too. Smita was trying to hide her shock at these measures. Do you think he'll do this? This got a shrug from the ambassador. Personally, I think it would be the smart thing to do. He's a fool though, so who knows what will happen. If he doesn't, Harry might just buy his bankrupt business from its new owners. Gringotts, who's going to complain about a goblin owning a business when that goblin is Harry Crow, and Harry doing so saves the jobs of witches and wizards? With everyone staring at his father in disbelief, Harry couldn't help but chuckle. Wizards and witches know so little about goblins, they couldn't even get the one thing they thought they knew right. It's not never mess with a goblin, it's really never mess with a goblin's family. Parvati, I've told you before that your family. Yes, there is a downside to that. People doing their best to harm my family is a right pain in the ass. There is a good side too. There was no laughter in Harry now. He had a steely glaze that everyone was glad wasn't directed at them. Those 3 boys no longer work for that circus. The owner was also advised to check back on locations they'd previously visited, since they had started working for them. Their business has a reputation to protect too, and the squad commander got the mission. This was not the first time these boys had tried this maneuver. Since it was this circus' first visit to Britain, all I could legally do was kick them off my land. I have to say though, the owner was bloody livid with all 3 of them. He was hoping to make a good impression and generate more business out of this weekend. His circus getting kicked out by the Baron of Kincussy certainly won't do that. Since the owner is also well aware of my Gringotts connections, I got the distinct impression those 3 boys' troubles were only just beginning. He's doing it again, Hermione. Don't you just love it when Harry scares the adults? Padma's quip released the building tension. That and Draco almost choking with laughter at the truth behind her remark. This had the goblin in question shaking his head. Don't encourage her, Draco. Padma's bad enough as she is. Now I intend to fly over the glen to see it being restored. Since we now have a full set of brooms, who would like to join us? Luna, can you? Yes, Harry, I'll take Sapphire on a broom. As they rose to leave, Ramro nudged Parvati in their direction. Go with your friends, we'll sit down and discuss what happens next tonight. As a now smiling Parvati shot out of there to catch up with the rest of the teens, her father slumped back in his chair. You did the right thing, dear. Neither of us were happy about sending her to live with your mother for the next 6 months. I know, Smitter, but we still haven't solved anything here. Dan and Emma, I just don't know how you cope. We have enough trouble trying to raise our daughters within the influences of 2 cultures. How do you manage with 3 totally separate ones? Well, I can't lie by saying it's easy. We're basically making it up as we go along. Then again, I think all parenting is like that. This drew some chuckles of agreement from the parents present and worrying glances in Astrid's direction from Sirius. He then received some comforting words from his mother-in-law. Don't worry about it, Sirius, you'll be fine. Moa. I look at Henrika holding Astrid and I'm almost in tears at the beauty of what I'm seeing. That they both have the last name Black fills me with so much love and pride I feel I might burst. My own parents though would have murdered both of my girls in their sleep, while the ministry still classes them and you as well as Remus as creatures. We have all just worked our hours off to make this weekend the success that it was, and I'm certainly not disputing it's done our country a power of good, but it should never have been necessary in the first place. All of us in this room can see what's wrong. Why can't everyone else? It was Lucas who actually tried to answer that conundrum. Prejudices are not restricted, Britain, Sirius, or even witches and wizards. They may differ throughout the countries of the world, from culture to culture even, but they will always exist. What's needed is for people to stand up and say, this is not right. I think all of us just did that to great effect over the weekend. I also pity anyone who calls our little Astrid a creature in her grandfather, father or godfather's hearing. Dan tried to raise the mood again. You forgot to mention Astrid's grandmother, mother and goddaughter. Those are certainly 3 formidable ladies. He received backing for his efforts from Augusta. I also think you need to take into account that Remus and Henrika are 2 of the students' favorite professors at Hogwarts. I was really proud of the way our students behaved all weekend. They are showing the entire country the way forward. I truly believe that by the time Astrid Black and James Granger are of age to travel to Hogwarts, their blood status or heritage won't matter a damn to anyone. That was a vision that found agreement from Amelia. This prejudice has been around since before Hogwarts was founded. If our younger generation can change a millennium of prejudice to the level you're suggesting, in the space of a decade too, that would have to be considered a magnificent victory. They didn't know their charges were currently chipping away at some of those prejudices. Even as they were speaking, the 4 birds had once more welcomed Eargit's presence as they flew over the glen. They were also joined by 7 teens on half a dozen brooms. This had of course attracted the attention of the goblin children who lived in the glen, leading to the group swooping down to talk with them. Seeing Sapphire sitting on the back of a broom had one of the bolder children asking if they could try that too. Soon brooms were taking off with little goblin passengers on the back for a quick flight around the glen. Hearing the children's squeals of joy and laughter had those goblins working at dismantling the fair standing just that little bit straighter. Here was an event they could boast to their grandchildren they had been part of because history had and was still being made in this Scottish glen. The group was standing beside what yesterday had been the ice zone. Removing the charms last night had seen that ice and snow gone by this morning. The Swiss-style chalet was being retained, though moved from here to beside Crow's Nest. It would be used as extra accommodation when they had loads of people staying, or as the centerpiece of any outside party. It was parties that were on the minds of Hermione and Padma. With the ministry summer ball being slightly later this year, we need to make some plans. Padma really couldn't resist teasing her best friend. And we all know how much our Hermione likes her plans. We need to decide first whether we're going to the ball, and then what to do about these two birthday boys. It was just the four of them and Sapphire at the moment, since everyone else was up in the air. Neville offered his opinion on Padma's questions. I feel we need to attend the ball. The ministry has been supporting us with everything we've asked for. We should really offer our support for their event. As to our birthdays, I would like that to be as quiet as possible. That opinion was backed by Harry. I agree with Neville about the ball. Otherwise it would seem we only attend if there are awards being handed out. How about this as an idea for our birthdays? Spend them on the island. This certainly received a favorable response, so Harry expanded his idea some more. On one birthday we can have a joint party on the beach for the family. On the other, just the four of us round the other side of the island with a picnic basket. Oh, just us, sitting on the beach, and watching the sun go down. That sounds wonderful. Sorry, Sapphire. I didn't mean anything by that. It's okay, Hermione. Being on a beach with Harry is certainly something to get excited about. She couldn't hold her laugh anymore as Hermione groaned. Not you too. I get enough teasing from Padma without others jumping on the bandwagon. I couldn't help it. Hermione, it was just too good a chance to pass up. After all the craziness of the fair, you all deserve some time on your own. Padma had a question though. Do we allow the girls to invite dates? It was Harry who shook his head at that. What would we do about Parvati? Having her as the only girl without a date would be cruel. While Hermione agreed with that, she took the opportunity to tease Sapphire back. And just who would you be asking as your date? Oh, goblins don't really date as such. They have groups of friends who you would hang about with socially, and then hopefully meet your mate. The Queen of the Quips couldn't resist that one either. Well, that certainly worked for us four. None of them minded Padma's teasing this time, since it was essentially true. That and the fact they were all heading to the island in a few days had everyone in good spirits. The meeting in the minister's office a few days later also saw those attending in good spirits. Those in the ministry who had managed to spend some time in Kingersea over the weekend were still raving about their experiences. That Harry had made it a family event really won people over, apart from that fool, Adam Brown. Instead of getting down on his knees and thanking the Goblin security force for intervening on his daughter's behalf, he attempted some sort of power play and got right royally shafted. Standing in Gringotts and giving a public apology might have saved his business, but everyone now believed he was a liar, leaving his reputation irreparably damaged. Today's meeting at the ministry was to ensure the cup final suffered no such fallout. Cornelius got straight to the heart of the matter. Dolores approached me with a very good point about the cup final, which is why I called this meeting. While we in this country have welcomed the joint Oru warrior security forces, the final is going to be full of Irish and Bulgarians who might not be so understanding. The last thing we need is an international incident when some drunken Quidditch fan takes objection to a warrior telling them what to do. I would welcome your views on this matter. The head of the DMLA was first to offer her opinion. The safety of the event was going to be her responsibility. I don't think the Irish would mind too much, unless the warriors were trying to break up their party. We all know the Bulgarians are a totally different kettle of fish. I could easily see a few confrontations breaking out, but can we afford not to have the Goblin warriors on patrol beside the Auras? There was an unhealthy dose of shared hatred between Dolores and Amelia. They seemed to hold polar opposite views on just about everything. Dolores certainly didn't want these animals anywhere near what she considered her event. unless they were dressed in brightly colored costumes and acting as team mascots. Surely Arthur could just explain to this ambassador creature that we don't require their assistance for this event. No one currently in the minister's office expected Amelia to take that lying down. They weren't disappointed. She came roaring back at Dolores with venom dripping off every word she spoke. That ambassador creature is a very good friend of mine. He also personally saved the lives of an Aurora's family in this very building, getting himself wounded in the process. That same Aurora and his family were guests of the Baron last weekend. Little Danielle Dugan had the time of her life. Such a pity you missed it, Dolores. I can't think of anyone who could have benefited from the experience more than you. If you have to hug a goblin to have your home warded, I think I'd rather be visited in the night by Death Eaters. Somehow your opinion doesn't surprise me, Dolores. Arthur tried to interrupt before wands were drawn between these two adversaries. The joint patrols have been universally exercited and proclaimed a great success in Hogsmeade, Diagon Alley and even last weekend in Kingsay. I would certainly be against any moves to change that. Since the entire stadium will be warded against Death Eaters, we could perhaps increase the goblin to aura ratio in these areas, freeing auras from Hogsmeade and Diagon Alley to assist at the cup final. This way we are asking our goblin friends for help, while avoiding putting them in a situation that is potentially politically delicate. Amos liked the sound of that. He would be attending the final with Cedric and his friend Roger. Amos wanted that stadium to be the safest place in Britain. He was also savvy enough to know that one bad incident with the Warriors would be jumped upon by those of a darker procedure, as proof they were moving too fast and too far with their reforms. He backed Arthur's suggestion. The sixth person at the meeting was paying these discussions scant attention. His status as a department head had earned Ludo an invitation to Cussy. What he saw there rocked his world. The former Quidditch player wasn't really interested in the various zones, different cultures or the amount of integration taking place. He'd sat in the Three Broomsticks outlet, drinking butter beer and eating stew, while making the discovery that the goblins as a race appeared to be as addicted to gambling as he was. Now, all he had to figure out was how to scam them out of their gold. That shouldn't be too difficult. He heard Amelia arguing for a force of warriors to be standing by in case they needed them at the final. Arthur pointing out that anything attacking the wards would soon draw a goblin presence made Cornelius's mind up. Security for the cup final would be handled by the auras, with a force of warriors held in reserve. The couple running along the beach were clearly reaching the last of their reserves. Their gaits were certainly now more staggering than sprinting. Having fun yet? I hate this. Oh, good. It took a couple of breaths before he could get the next part out. For a minute there I thought we were going to have to stop. What? This did halt his running partner, allowing him to stop too and take a much-needed breather. Standing half-bent, with his hands on his knees, he finally managed to get the next bit out. Well, it would hardly be punishment if you were enjoying it now, would it? You mean if I'd said yes, it would be over? Ramro answered with a question of his own. Would you lie to your father? No, father, I'm just not used to getting up at this time or all this exercise. I'm struggling to breathe, sore all over and not thinking straight at the moment. Sit and we'll take 5 minutes. Father and daughter sat on the sand, watching the waves gently lap against the beach while trying to ignore the pains from their aching muscles. Father, I understand this is part of my punishment and I accept that. Why are you running with me though? You clearly hate this as much as I do. Since my body is considerably older than yours, I think I'm entitled to hate it even more than you do. Parvati, someday you will have children of your own and discover what a precious and wonderful gift they are. This change in tact clearly confused Parvati and saw Ramro reach out and take his daughter's hand. I have no doubts you and your husband will do your utmost to raise your children to be the best they can be, since all parents will occasionally get it wrong. I think it's only fair to say you and your husband will make the occasional mistake too. That is why I run beside you. If my wonderful Parvati thinks her recent behavior would ever be acceptable to me, then I have made a grave mistake somewhere. A mistake I deserve to be punished for. The teenage witch broke down crying at that, then found herself enveloped by the safest pair of arms in the world. They mumbled apologies and words of love to each other. as both held on to one of the most important people in their lives. Their supposed 5 minutes of rest was now easily 10, as Ramro gently soothed his daughter's sobs away. He thought he knew just how to make her feel better. Draco approached me about a letter he received from Blaze. He said Blaze never believed Lavender's father for a second, and then Adam Brown publicly having to admit he was wrong inside Gringotts justified his opinion. Draco mentioned some deal you had with Blaze, and apparently Blaze still wants to honor it. Would you care to tell me what that deal was? The tears were back for Parvati, but she had the sobs under control at the moment. When we broke up, we agreed to be each other's date for anything that came up until one of us found another partner. He was pretty sure that would have been the case. It was now time to put something he'd been thinking about into practice. Adam Brown making this matter public has meant the Patio's actions and reactions will be public too. There is simply no avoiding it. If our family attends the ministry summer ball without you, that sends out one message. If we take you but keep you close all evening, that sends out a different message too. If you were to walk into that ball, beside your family and on the arm of your date, it could put an end to speculation over this incident once and for all. Parvati's sobs had returned, but her father still held her. Ramro had more to say on the matter. For this to have any chance of happening, you will write to that young wizard and tell him everything. How you have been acting foolishly, what it would mean for Blaze to escort you to this ball, and anything else you want to put in there. If Blaze still wants to escort you, I will make all the necessary arrangements to see that this happens. You must tell him everything though. Blaze needs to know all the details before he makes his decision. He's a fine young wizard, one that I will not have it said the Patil family took advantage of. Parvati was struggling to stop her sobs, and also to believe what she was hearing. You would allow me to go to the ball? Under the right conditions, yes. Those conditions being you must learn from this, and have a date I approve of for the ball. Your punishment still stands though. Ramro was again having trouble breathing, this time because his daughter was holding him so tight. The hawk swooped down and landed beside them. A second later Padma was speaking to her father and sister. Are you two all right? Her twin was wiping the tears from her eyes that Parvati was smiling while doing so just confused Padma even more. We're fine, Padma. We just stopped for a rest before finishing our run. Well, you've only got about a mile left to go. We'll see you when you get back. I know flying is exercise too, but I much prefer it to running. As Saber shot back into the air to join the 3 other animagi waiting on her, Ranro helped his other daughter to her feet. They still had another mile to run, then he intended to lie down quietly for the rest of the day. Part of Parvati's punishment was to run every morning of the summer holidays. Ranro was beginning to doubt if he would survive that. The group arrived at the ball, and even although there were no guests of honor here this year, they were still being stared at. With their awards proudly on display on their outfits, it was probably understandable. They were again dressed in what the girls called their Pride and Prejudice clothes, and couldn't help smiling at the number of other witches and witches now wearing similar attire. The wizarding tailors had finally cottoned on to this fad and started producing similar clothes. Harry and Hermione couldn't help but chuckle when thinking the entire craze was started by a woefully out-of-date Muggle Studies coursebook. It wasn't all the stares and whispers that were making Harry nervous though, he just didn't want to be away from Kinkasi. Relax Harry, father is with them in case they need to get to Gringotts in a hurry. Moss and Lucas are babysitting Astrid there too. And can you see Dobby letting anything happen to his beloved mistress? You know Mum wouldn't hear of us cancelling tonight. I'm pregnant, not ill, I can practically hear her say it. Hermione, I'm just so excited waiting for James to be born. Merlin knows what I'll be like when it's time for our child. Dan looks so calm. This drew a laugh from Hermione. He's anything but calm, Harry, Dad just hides it better. Parvati was also anything but calm. She wasn't very good at hiding it though. She felt her date squeeze her hand on his arm and she drew strength from that. Blaze had been a rock for her. Tonight the group had booked 2 tables, one each under the names of Longbottom and Black, with the only stipulation being that the tables were beside each other. There were quartets of Longbottoms and Partailers sitting alongside Harry and Hermione, with Blaze taking their number up to 11. The Blacks had Remus and Tonks, Hannah and Susan had asked Zach and Justin to be their dates for tonight, while Luna invited Colin along as a friend. As usual, places would become fluid when the dancing started. Not having to worry about awards gave Harry more time to look around and see all the faces he knew. Weasley's change in circumstances was also very evident. There on display for everyone to see as the family had their own table, they appeared though to have taken the wise decision to leave Ron at home. The twins' inclusion might have raised a few eyebrows before, but not now. These two prefects had just added OTWLA. Bezedoris in defense, charms, herbology and transfiguration to the outstanding in potions they received last summer. Fred and George had invited Angelina and Alicia as their dates. While Ginny sat with Bill, it was the remaining couple who were garnering all the attention of their table. Percy and Penny had been advised by both Bill and Arthur to take their time over the summer before making any decisions that would affect their futures. Both had done so, but those decisions had now been made. Gringotts' latest employees were also sitting there sporting engagement rings. Harry of course knew Penny better than Percy, but was delighted for the happy couple. He was also one of the few who knew what they would actually be doing inside Gringotts. With Hermione and Harry both confirming they wanted to attend university, that would mean he would be at least in his early 20s before he could possibly become assistant ambassador to his father. With the current occupier of that position not really wanting to commit to that post much past Harry leaving Hogwarts, Percy and Penny were being drafted into father's expanding department, and would be working toward one of them eventually taking over from Bill. With no awards tonight, the meal was served first before the obligatory speech would take place. Sitting having a fine meal with family and friends soon saw even Parvati relax, and there was dancing to look forward to later. Cornelius's speech was going well. His quip about not knowing what to do with his hands, since there was no awards to hand out tonight, generated a very good response. The minister's next point concerned one of those previous awards. Last year many of you were here to witness Harry Crow becoming the Baron of Kingussy. I was honored to have been a guest of the Baron's earlier in the summer, when my wife and I had a wonderful time at his fair. I would just like to take this opportunity to publicly thank Baron Crow for including so many of those who work at the ministry in what was a tremendous event. This led to much clapping and cheering before Cornelius moved on to the upcoming event, the Quidditch World Cup final. For a politician, it didn't get much better than being able to stand up and give people good news. His good news was interrupted by a high-pitched beeping coming from somewhere in the hall. Then he saw Harry getting to his feet as the noise stopped. "Minister Fudge, we're really sorry to leave, but that was an urgent message from my father. Hermione and I need to head to Gringotts." "Is there anything wrong, Harry? Can we help?" "No, Minister, that message means our brother is on the way. Not something we want to miss. Oro Tonks, we will be portkeying into Gringotts the moment we leave the ministry wards. Please stay and enjoy the ball." A nod from Amelia saw Tonks accepting that offer, though she did promise to catch up with the four of them later. It was only then Cornelius noticed young Longbottom and his betrothed ready to leave too. Neville's comment that he couldn't wait to see his godson put a smile on more than just the minister's face. Cornelius was honest enough to admit that even a few years ago he would have been incandescent with rage over something like this. The old fudge would have seen this as a deliberate attempt to upstage him, and been worried about what plot was behind it, who was trying to force him out. Tonight he could see the situation for exactly what it was. 4 teens hyper-excited over the birth of a baby in their family. This version of Cornelius Fudge knew exactly how to handle the situation. "Please pass our good wishes on to Emma and Dan." As the 4 teens hurried from the hall, the Minister for Magic couldn't help but think this baby boy was being born into a different world than his older sister had been. It was time to get back on track, though the night was still young. It was much later that night when Harry held a tiny figure in his arms. "Hello James, I'm your brother Harry." It was a few weeks later when Ron was ignoring his brothers to concentrate on the tiny figure in his hands. Ginny might have raved about the ministry ball, but Ron was glad he'd talked his way out of that one. The ball sounded incredibly boring to him. Not like tonight. Ron Weasley just had the best night of his life. He was staring at the little Quidditch figure in awe. The reverence in his voice, unmistakable. "Did you see him? Wasn't Crumb simply unbelievable?" "Oh no, Ron, we missed it." Yeah, Fred and I always take a good book with us to the Quidditch World Cup final. You'll just have to tell us all about it. Totally missing the gentle sarcasm, Ron then began a play-by-play account of the game. That he was using the little action figure to demonstrate his descriptions had everyone sniggering. That was until the screaming started. They all rushed out of the tent to be greeted by the sight of the dark mark hanging menacingly in the night sky. It was visible due to flashes of spells causing explosions, flames and utter panic. All 7 Weasley children were there with their father while Amos stood with Cedric and Roger. It was the Ravenclaw who asked the first question. I thought this area was warded. How is this possible? It was actually Bill who quickly answered. We couldn't ward the camping area since we don't own it. That's why we had to pay money to the Muggle farmer to allow us to camp on his land. I want you 4 to take Ron and Ginny and head back to the safety of those wards around the stadium. This is not a Sunday morning drill, guys. Are you up to this? All 4 had their wands out and their game faces on. All jokes were forgotten. Here were the 4 students Bill tutored every week. They'll be fine, Amos. Otherwise I wouldn't have given them this task. We need to go and help contain this. Amos nodded as he, Arthur, Bill, Charlie and Percy disapparated away to help in the battle. Fred, George, Cedric and Roger were used to working as a team and quickly got organized, deciding to choose the most direct route back to the stadium. Before they even left the camp though, Ron let out a piercing scream of terror that was of a higher pitch than anything Ginny could ever reach. He was left unable to speak, but when they looked to where his shaking hand was pointing, no one there blamed him in the slightest. Directly in front of Ron, a dead body was clawing itself out of the shallow grave it had been buried in. It didn't speak, but the nightmare now pulling itself upright didn't really need to. Those sunken eyes may be dead, but the menace they contained was very much a threat to the life of anyone this creature got its hands on.